What's up, book lovers? It's Dakota, and today I am going to be... I don't know what that was. Today I'm going to be talking about the best books that I read in 2020. These are in no particular order. These aren't the only books I read in 2020. These are just a few of the standouts, and I'm going to say like a quick-ass thing about them, and then we'll be good to go. So the first book that I read was Cat on a Hot Tin Roof by Tennessee Williams, which is technically a play. But this is probably one of my favorite movies. I got a copy of the movie from my grandmother years ago, and I've seen it probably 1,000 times, and so I wanted to read the source material that it came from. And there were some drastic differences, like between play and film. And the film has Elizabeth Taylor in it. It's awesome. But there were a lot of like subliminal, I don't know, gay themes in the play that I didn't pick up between the main male character and his dead friend Skipper. I love this play. The next thing I read in 2020 that really stood out to me was Beautiful Boy by David Sheff. This is about this father's journey dealing with his son's addiction. You know, it kind of starts when he's in high school and he's really young with kind of experimenting with substances and stuff, and then it kind of breaches out into meth, and it gets really, really serious, and this is kind of the father's journey to help his son out as much as he can and kind of get his son sober. Really kind of sad, but ultimately uplifting. It's a hopeful book. Oh gosh, what's his name? Steve Carell and then our boy Timothy Chalamet are in the Amazon movie of this, and I thought the movie was very, very good. Ooh, this one. Are there any words? Has anyone not read this? This is one of my auto-buy authors now, like obsessed with Jason Reynolds, who also... Oh no. Where is it? Where is it? Hold please. Who also wrote my favorite book of all time, For Everyone. So, this is the same guy, Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. Look at all these medals. It's earned everything. It's written in verse. It's a super quick read. And this book, I finished it and I was like, and I just had to kind of sit there for a second and ponder what had just happened to me, because it was incredible. The story's incredible. There's a graphic novel of it that just came out that I really want, but I'm trying not to buy any books in 2021, so we'll see how that goes. But Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. This is a story, the whole book takes place during one elevator ride down 7 floors, and the young man, our protagonist, as the elevator stops on each level, he meets someone from his past, and we learn a little bit more about them and about him, and oh my gosh, you have to read this book. But also, I will always find a way to plug this book, For Everyone by Jason Reynolds. This book will take you maybe 10, 15 minutes to read. It will change your life. Please read that book. Read them both. Also, I am super late to the party on this one, but we have Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. Again, pretty much required reading for the YA genre. I haven't read the Grisha trilogy. This was kind of my entrance into the Grishaverse, and it was good. What am I saying? It's one of my favorite books of 2020, so I really liked it. I didn't think it was that like mind-blowing. It was a really, really good story, done really well. I really loved the characters and the world, and I thought Leigh did a great job of kind of acclimating you to the Grishaverse if you hadn't already read the Grisha trilogy. So it's not necessary to read that to understand what's going on in this book. Crooked Kingdom is on my 2021 TBR so that I can kind of wrap this up. It took me a while to get through it, just because I spaced it in between other books I was working on. So, yeah, really liked it. It was great. I'm excited to see how it wraps up. There's rumor that there's going to be a third one, but I don't think that's going to happen. So, we will see. The next favorite book of 2020 was Feed by M.T. Anderson. This book I still think about almost daily. Anytime I see an ad on social media or on TV or drive by a billboard or something, or I don't know, does this ever happen to you all? You'll be having a conversation with someone about something random like snow boots, and then the conversation's over, you get on your phone, you're scrolling through your social media, and after a few scrolls, an ad comes up for snow boots. Has that ever happened to you all? Because it happens to me a lot, and it really freaks me out, and this book really freaked me out. Everyone needs to read this book. I think this book is brilliant. I think it's, I guess I would classify it as speculative fiction, maybe. It's definitely where we're headed if we don't get our lives together. Basically, it follows this young man as he is there's this thing called the feed, and basically it's this computer system, I guess, that's in everyone's heads that's constantly inundating them with ads and things that they want to see, and it's kind of tailored to each individual, and it kind of alters their behavior and adapts to their behavior and stuff. It's super freaky and it's super relevant right now. And then he meets this girl who is trying to kind of like resist the feed and really live in the moment and appreciate things like art and life and actual human connection. And this book was amazing. Check the first line. I always tell people, I read them the first line and to try to convince them to read this. We went to the moon to have fun, but the moon turned out to completely suck. It's a great book. Gotta read it. 5 out of 5 stars. Next up, we have Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Again, I feel like everyone has seen this book in their bookstores, wherever you are. I feel like everyone knows what this is. It's a companion novel to Circe, which I want to read, but it's not a priority. I've heard like mixed reviews about Circe, but Song of Achilles is awesome. It's pretty much a gay retelling about the Greek god Achilles. And I wouldn't consider Achilles the main character, though. I definitely think this is a story about his lover, Patroclus. Ooh, that's a hard name to say, Patroclus. And it's kind of about how Achilles' pride gets in the way of their love and their relationship, and it ultimately becomes his downfall. Great book. Oh my gosh. I listened to the audiobook, which was done really well. I felt kind of intimidated going into this book with like the pronunciation of names and, oh, it's historical and it's going to be boring. It was so good. Highly recommend the audiobook though. That kind of like relieves you of the pressure to pronounce these names or to kind of clunk through them the way I would. So 10 out of 10 would recommend Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I am going to read Circe, but it's not high on the list. I will read it someday. The next book that blew me away in 2020 was The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo, and she has become another auto-buy author for me purely because of this book. So I saw this thing, and what appealed to me was that it was written in verse, so it can be kind of like a quick read and everything. But I didn't think I would relate to this story or find it interesting. It's about a young woman who's from the Dominican Republic, and she's Catholic and has a really strained relationship with her mother, and like none of the things that I've experienced on my journey. But I've heard great things about it. I had heard great things about it, so I was like, let's do it. Picked it up. Whoa, this book is incredible. The writing. Elizabeth Acevedo is a master. I just bought With the Fire on High, also by Elizabeth Acevedo, so I cannot wait to read that. But this book basically follows our main character. She's living in New York. She's a Catholic, and she has like this uncanny natural ability for like slam poetry. And she wants to join a slam poetry club, and it's like her way of expressing herself, and she has really super strained relationship with her mother, and her mother just kind of, I think her mother means well and wants the best for her, but I don't think she realizes that she's being so rigid and overbearing and kind of hindering our main character from being the person she wants to be, and so they clash, and that's the climax of the story there. 10 out of 10 would recommend. I gave it 5 stars. Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. Next, we have Lie With Me by Philippe Besson. This book popped up in like my recommend feed or something because I had finished Call Me By Your Name, which is not here, but I also read in 2020 and it blew me away. But I feel like it's a cliche to say that it's your favorite book because everyone loves it, I believe. I did love Call Me By Your Name, but I was looking for something along that same vein, and this popped up, and so I read this, and it's another gay love story, takes place in Italy, but oh my gosh, this book wrecked me. It's super, super short. I think it's only like, 143 pages, super short, and devastating. Like, Call Me By Your Name made me sad, and I feel like it, everyone's seen, I keep saying everyone, maybe you haven't, that's okay. I feel like a lot of people have seen the movie and how it ends with that whole fireplace. Ugh. And I feel like I have more of a visceral emotional reaction to the movie than I did the book when it comes to Call Me By Your Name, even though the book still kind of affected me. It totally affected me. But this, like, I was sitting in this chair, actually, my little beanbag chair, and I read this and I just like melted like an egg on a sidewalk. I was devastated by this book. Oh my gosh. I can't really say anything about it. It's about a similar to Call Me By Your Name love story, but way sadder. Give this a read. Yes, it will wreck you. Ooh, next we have a graphic novel, and it is Flamer by Mark Curado. This book, I saw it when it popped up in Barnes & Noble relatively early, and I kind of flipped through it and I was like, ooh, this is awesome. And there's like a blurb on here that says, this book will save lives, and it was written by the author of Hey Kiddo, which is another graphic novel I read last year, which should be over here because that blew me away too, also about addiction. I love to read about addiction. But this book is about a young man who is a Boy Scout, and it's a coming of age story. I don't know. I think he's very young, maybe starting high school, but he's a Boy Scout and he goes to a Boy Scout retreat and everything, and he's coming to terms with his sexual identity and how he struggles through it, and his battle with kind of homophobic slurs and the bigotry that's kind of thrown at him, and him dealing with it and stuff. And there's also a lot of like body image things in this comic as well that I thought was handled really, really well. He's kind of struggling not only with his sexual identity, but his physical, like how he looks to the world. And he's, in his mind, he's not like the most lean and chiseled person in the world, and he's kind of trying to come to terms with, oh, that's okay, and trying to love himself from the inside out. This was an incredible read. I've loaned it out to so many people. The artwork is so amazing. It's in black and white except for the scenes where like fire is involved or flames are referenced, and so near and dear to my heart. This was a great book. Next, we have The Past and Other Things That Should Stay Buried by Sean David Hutchinson, which is becoming, slowly but surely, one of my auto-buy authors, although I did not like We Are the Ants. I'm going to have to give that a reread. I know a lot of people really like We Are the Ants by Sean David Hutchinson. It did nothing for me. I barely finished that. I'm sorry if that's your favorite book, but it just really drove me nuts. Anyway, back to this book, which was awesome. I read this while I was at the beach. This is about a young man whose friend died. Sorry, I heard like a scratching outside. This is about a young man whose friend dies, and he works at his family's mortuary place where they kind of prepare dead bodies for funerals and stuff, like with the embalming and the makeup. I'm mortuary, I believe. He works at his family's that. And, he's kind of dreading it because he and this friend that passed away, this female, they had like a falling out, and the friendship didn't really end on good terms, and then she passed away. And so he was going to kind of get her ready for her funeral and kind of put closure to it. And she's not dead, and some stuff is going on. I feel like Sean David Hutchinson always like throws in that little fantastical supernatural element into his books, but it's a super like realistic story otherwise. There's like one thing that he'll shift, and then it's just like a normal story about like a normal teenager who just happens to have a dead best friend or dead ex best friend. This book was funny. I thought it was really, really cool. It was a cool way to kind of get at the point that you never want to wait to kind of resolve issues that you have with someone. Tomorrow's not guaranteed kind of thing. And so in this book, they kind of get one last chance to hash out their things and kind of end on good terms, you know? So it's kind of funny. I would consider it a dark comedy, right? You've got this like zombified dead girl who came back to life, and she smells and parts of her are falling off, and it sounds really graphic, but it was handled in a really funny way, like kind of a farce, sarcastical view of death, and I really, really enjoyed this book. I listened to the audiobook and it was awesome. I gave this book 5 stars. I really, really enjoyed it. The last best book of 2020. Why do I do this? What is this? No. This is a big statement. I don't know. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. This could be the best book of 2020, other than, where is it? Oh no. What did I do with it? This will always be a book near and dear to my heart. I will always find an excuse to put this in a video. But that aside, because this book changed my life. This book, We Contain Multitudes by Sarah Henstra. Like, I read this in early 2020, and I still think about these two characters, Joe and Carl. I remember their names. The story was told in letters that the two characters send back and forth to each other. I recommend this book to everybody. Even though I know the story front to back, when I go through the bookstore and see a copy, I'll pick it up and just be like, ooh. It's like, I don't know. It's like if you met Beyonce once and then you met her again, you would still just like freak out. That's how I am about this book. I love this book. So basically there's 2 young men in high school. It's kind of a love story. They're polar opposites. One's like really thin and artsy, and one's kind of like jockey and rough around the edges and comes from a rough background. And they write letters to each other, and they get assigned to do like an English project together, or they like pen pals is their English project, and they write back and forth to each other, and it starts out really kind of rigid, and they're like, don't like you, that's good, I don't like you either. And they slowly start to share more information about each other and get to know each other better, and then their lives kind of become intertwined outside of the classroom, and they start to explore a friendship which delves into a much closer friendship and then something more. And I thought the story was beautifully, beautifully told. Some super dark elements. It like deals with abuse, and there's drug use in here. And one thing I will say about this is one of the best handlings I've ever read of a sex scene or a love scene, whatever you want to call it. The writing was so beautiful. It didn't seem graphic or out of place. It really kind of felt like this beautiful, I don't know, milestone in life, which is what a lot of times people's first sexual encounter is for them. It was handled with such care, and it read so beautifully. It was kind of like the chapter ended and I was like, oh my God, I just read that. And it wasn't like a shock. It was like, oh my gosh, it was so smoothly introduced into the story. And I love this book. I do want to reread this, but we'll see when I get to it. But I think about the story constantly. I think about these two characters constantly. I thought this was a great story. I would love a sequel. I don't know how you would do a sequel, but I think she could. I would like one. So that is all. That is my 2020 wrap up, I guess, for the best books that I read. Give them a read. I really, really enjoyed them, and everything in this video I would highly, highly recommend. And I'll see you in the next one.